And we're live now, or we will be once the meeting starts.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Chris. Good seeing you again.
Definitely good seeing you.
I'm going to
Long
step
time.
away for 1 minute, and then I'll be back and I will start the webinar. But somebody's whining and desperately wants to go out.
Deborah, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Oh yeah, so I've emailed you a number of times, and I'm happy to talk to you at any point, and hopefully tonight's presentation can perhaps answer, can at least begin to answer perhaps some of your questions or ideas that you may have had about the park.
Okay.
But we can talk offline too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for.
Oh
Hey, Joe, I'm
yeah,
gonna
of
start
course.
the webinar, so we should see attendees start to join.
Hi, everyone. Sorry if I joined late. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Hi, Davey. We haven't started yet.
Okay, great. We just lit the building, the Litchfield Villa holiday lights. So
Oh.
that just happened about 2 minutes ago. So
You could have spent a little more time there.
it's all good. I think I'm just going to be listening mostly, but obviously if there are parks related questions, I think Chris, Noel, Nate, and I are here to jump in and help where necessary.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Gulliver.
Hello? Hello? I'm not sure who that was.
My name is Gulliver Shepherd. My name doesn't have my affiliation. I'm with Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, landscape architect. Spoke with some of you before.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. I just have a screen with everybody's face, so if I don't see who's talking at that moment, I can't tell who it was.
It's the new way.
Mhm.
For how long?
And I hope it ends soon. I like talking to people face to face.
Yeah, I'm not used to that anymore.
I hear that a lot too.
Joanna, I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thanks.
I see Doug's joining us now.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have any. I'm on a meeting.
Be right back. Victor, would you like to start or should we give it more time?
No, we're gonna start it. Just everyone's here from Steiner and EDC and all that good stuff that needs to be here right now.
It was a large group. I know we have a whole bunch. I don't know if it's everyone.
All right, so that's good enough. Let's start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Swinton. I am the chair of the Parks Committee. We're having a joint meeting with the Ability and Access Committee also pertaining to Bush Terminal Park and the playground. Today, we're going to have a presentation by Steiner Studios on their proposal for the playground at Bush Terminal. We're going to definitely, I know Parks is here. There's a few questions I have personally for Parks that I would like to ask later on. And at this time, I'm going to ask Jeremy, if you don't mind reading the roll.
Thank you, Victor. I don't mind at all. That's why I get a paycheck. So I'm going to mute everybody. And I am going to call the roll for two committees. So if you're on both committees, I might call your name twice. If you're on neither committee, I'm not going to call you. But if you're a board member, I'm going to write your name down. We're going to start with the Parks Committee. Board members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge it, and then mute yourself again. Victor Swinton.
Present.
Thank you. Sylvia Augusto. Sylvia Augusto. Johanna Bjorkin.
Here.
Thank you. Joan Body.
Here.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd.
Here.
Thank you. Joseph Canali. Joseph Canali. Mary Jo Eister. Mary Jo Eister. Nicole Huang. Nicole Huang. John Fontillis. John Fontillis. Zachary Jacey. Zachary Jacey. Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy. Fred Wolf. Fred Wolf. Okay, we're going to move on to the Ability and Access Committee. Cynthia Vandenbosch.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra Alfonso.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body.
Here.
Thank you. John DeLuper.
Present.
Thank you. David Estrada. David Estrada. Beverly Kleinman. Beverly Kleinman. Jimmy Lee. Jimmy Lee. Julio Pena. Julio Pena. Karen Rolnick. Karen Rolnick. That's both committees. Victor, I see there's a board member with their hand up. Would you like me to call them?
Yes, please.
Katie Walsh?
Hi, I have an email from the board that says I'm on the Parks Committee. I didn't hear my name called.
This might be an old sheet, I'm not sure, but I will mark you present and we'll make sure to check it against it and we will shred these sheets otherwise. Thank you, Katie.
I noticed David Estrada has also just joined us.
And so I have.
So David, you're present, am I correct?
Well, I feel present. Yes, I do, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you can take it away, Victor.
All right, Jerry, if you don't mind also, if you don't mind dealing with the hands up when the questions come, I appreciate that also.
Absolutely.
Again, I would like to thank the Ability and Access Committee. I want to get on with the meeting, but I do want to turn it over to Cindy if she has a few opening remarks before we begin.
I'd also like to thank everyone who's here for the meeting, the attendees, the committees, as well as Steiner and the designers and Parks Committee folks. We are looking forward to seeing this presentation tonight. And I would say, the biggest thing that we are really interested in seeing is that we are going to get a universally designed playground for children of all abilities, children with disabilities to enjoy, and especially a playground that can be well maintained and supported through the years. We want to see a playground that's just as accessible and well designed as we would see in any other community. And so we're really grateful to see your plans and are looking forward to sharing our feedback. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Steiner Studio. You can start with your presentation, then we will follow up with questions.
Okay, this is Doug Steiner speaking. You have Nicole Augstein flipping pages for me because I'm technologically incompetent. But thank you for giving us this time tonight. We've been working pretty hard over the last year to get this project going, and we have tried to incorporate everything that we have heard to the fullest extent possible from the community with respect to the park. And I think hopefully you'll be very happy with the results. I'm very happy with them, but I'll be happier when I know you're happy. I'll speak for a bit, then we will have the park designer speak. That's Gulliver Shepherd from Michael Van Valkenburg Associates. I know we have some people from the Parks Department here as well. We'll do our thing and then take questions, I guess. So we will first start off with the community benefits. Just to give everyone an overall picture of the site and the project and orient everybody. Our site is bound in orange on this slide. The park, Bush Terminal Piers Park, is in green. And the south entrance to the park is shown in pink. That parcel is controlled by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And as part of our project, we will be improving and relocating the entrance at the south end of the park. But this gives everybody some orientation in terms of the street network and the various parcels, their relationship to each other. Next, please. We just want to start by showing off all of what we think is our benefits. We are going to construct a new playground, and we have park support with our design as it stands now. The playground will be accessible, and we've worked to make accessibility a main feature in everything we've done. We're adding picnic areas, increased landscaping. We're extending the pedestrian and the bicycle paths. I just mentioned the south entrance. We will be funding annually park programming, and we will be adding about 20 parking spaces for park visitors. As for the non-park aspects of the project, we project 2,200 permanent jobs when we're up and running. Those jobs are good jobs. They're $90,000 on average a year, plus full benefits, a union business, and a business that's booming for the US and for New York. We call film and television production manufacturing for the 21st century. It's good, clean manufacturing. It's got good compensation, and it has great opportunity. The unions are at full employment, so we want to really help to build the workforce locally and at the city level, but most importantly at the local level, and make those memberships grow and give everyone the benefit of that union job. As for construction, 1,800 jobs projected. We'll be working through SBIDC and Hire NYC. We will be advertising for local workers, and MWBE. We have hiring goals in our lease with EDC. In case you don't know, I'm not sure who's heard our other presentations. Our project is on land leased by EDC. EDC leases the land from the city of New York. We will also be funding annually for the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, racial and gender equity programs. We will be funding workforce training with the SBIDC and with Brooklyn Workforce Innovations. And we offer a 10-week summer internship program, paid. We will have dedicated space set aside in our project for nonprofits. And it's very helpful to people getting into the business to understand and be around it and set amid it. It's the opposite of an ivory tower, to the extent that they can be there and see what they're being part of and growing into and participating in. We think that's a good thing. And we would like to work to set up some kind of pathway, educational and career pathway through schools or 18 to 24-year-olds. And we will work with community stakeholders to find the best way to do that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Just gives you some numbers on what we are funding on an annual basis. The workforce training with Brooklyn Workforce Innovations and SBIDC, $55,000 a year. For the Mayor's Office of Media Entertainment, $25,000 a year for racial and gender equity programs. Our summer internship program, $15,000. For the education and career programming, $25,000, and for park programming, $25,000. And as with the design of the park, with respect to these with the park programming, we look to the community to tell us what they want. We're not dictating from on high. We are trying to be responsive to you. Let's go to the next page. Another orientation page. Slightly different than the earlier one, but the main thrust of what we're here about with respect to the park is the park should have been done 20 years ago. Unfortunately, EDC encountered a lot of environmental remediation that was required, and the money that would have gone towards completing the park had to be instead put to the environmental remediation. We are here today to show you how we will complete the park. And besides that, the entrance and the other aspects to it. Orientation wise, at the left side of the page, you see the south entrance. Above that, the sports field. The south sports field already exists, but the area around it is all fenced off. We will be improving that area. And along Marginal Way between us and the park, there's a promenade and a rain garden, which will be extensively expanded and extended through that area. And in orange, we will show you where we have cited the playground and what that consists of. Let's go to the next slide. Just some aerial photographs to give you further orientation and a sense of what's there. It's a beautiful park, and it's a pretty well-kept secret right now. I hope more people take advantage of it, and I think when it's completed, that'll certainly happen. Let's go to the next one. I guess Gulliver, do you want to take over from here? Gulliver Shepard is our park designer from Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, and he knows this stuff better than me and can speak the right language. And we've worked with him on other projects. We're very proud to be associated with him. Gulliver, all yours.
Thank you, Doug. I just want to echo something that Doug touched on, which is what a jewel this park is in the collection of the city. If you remember back a couple slides of those aerials, there's not a lot of green nearby. And when you come to this, when you turn the corner and find it, and it's amazing views that it affords, it's one of the best. And I think this community knows it. And I'm really excited to, be able to be part of bringing it to completion and be able to make the most out of the experience of coming to this park. It's what is so important in city living, in my perspective, obviously. If we want to go back to the slide I was also supposed to speak to, it covers some basics, again, echoing the unfinished areas that are highlighted in orange. One of the things that's really great there is, I know there are ways to get to the water's edge, but they're fair. That long pier on the far right is one of the most dramatic experiences on the waterfront. But at the same time, I find lots of people at the edges of that naturalized area trying to find a place to sit. And that phase 2 area is all about that, getting an invitation to come out to the waterfront and actually spend some time and with some comfort and make it completely accessible. We also, by completing the promenade, that everything along the edge of where the future studio will be, it gives the park an edge. It's sort of, you've had a chain link edge and uncertain relationship there. And it's nice to, again, as part of completing the picture of what the park feels like, to make a lush green edge and connect it with the, the right safe facilities for lighting, bikes, seating, and the like. And then of course, everyone's really excited to talk about the playground. Going next, but you can see on this plan, I'm sorry, Nicole, we had to work around a lot of light poles that exist. And that was part of the EDC's mission. So it wasn't like carte blanche to you can do whatever you want. Working on something that was started many, many years ago, we had to learn a lot of important drivers in order to shape this design. Next, please. This is just a rendition of the design. We're going to walk through each of these. The first one we're going to talk about is the phase 2 area. So why don't we just dive right in? You guys probably already know a lot of this, but there are those the light poles sitting in an area you cannot actually officially be in. And it has, you can just see over the volunteer vegetation, the harbor, and of course the big sky, that experience that you'd have looking out across to Staten Island and New Jersey. Next. Some more photos looking again, this time on the south edge, back to where the studio would be and the south entrance being reconfigured. All of the edges there are riprap and something we work with, and the EDC has put a lot of effort to complete and maintain. Okay, so what's on the left is the 2010 proposal, which located all those light poles, especially, and the kind of the expectation that we're working from. We believe we've reconciled that with also the current day accessibility needs. We've expanded the program, which was basically picnic areas and places to look out onto the waterfront. We have more walkways, more places to sit, more seating in the picnic areas. And it's all being conceived of with maximum opportunities for accessible tables. The previous design had some really narrow cornered spaces that would be difficult to get by today. And then shade. We heard that loud and clear from the community that there's not a lot of shade. And I've only recently, this summer I experienced it with my son playing soccer on the field, and you feel it. So next, please. So zooming in here, we'll talk first about the picnic area and then about the promenade edge. Great. So in detail, you can see the sort of lobed in and out picnic areas on either side of the main path, the wider path there, fully equipped with things that people will need if you're picnicking there, the garbage cans and lots of seating options. And places, a way to clean the whole facility. This is really important working with parks. It's essential that the people who get to enjoy this don't want to come there, and because it's difficult to maintain, it doesn't get maintained right, and you have a rundown feeling thing. So this is an important thing for all park making in cities, is that you have to make sure it aligns with the maintenance regime. And so we've done a lot of good work with parks to get that working. You'll see all these options for seating right at the water's edge, both some benches that are matching the 1964 World's Fair bench that you see in various parks in the city, right there at the water's edge, but also some little feature seating that we're calling harbor lookouts. We could go to the next one. On the promenade, again, this is aligning the bike trail, the promenades, and seats and lighting, and then planting more shade trees for that experience. So this will be now a cohesive condition running north to south along that eastern edge. But then what you'll also see is the relationship to the, at the very bottom there on the very eastern side, you'll see a very lush green edge that does have the rain garden, but it's also just planted in such a way that when you're walking the promenade, it's not just a line of trees down the middle, you feel embraced by planting on both sides. Next, please. So this is looking back at a section you can see in the key plan in the lower right, going through the phase 2 area, the picnic areas. You can see that harbor lookout type of stone seating, and then the picnic tables on the left set amidst the shade trees. At the very left, the edge of the south sports field. And what we're just pointing out here is all of this has to be done very carefully, thinking about how we build foundations, how we change the grades, to be very careful not to disturb the landfill cap. And so we're working with adding more to the existing grade for more room for soils to make this planting and all those shade trees do well. Next. Another section through the south. Again, we're adding, one of the things that's so exciting about this park is the topography, that central hill feature. And there's a few of these little hillocks that also exist in this area, but we've added some here that will be not just to play on that theme, though I think it's a great thing to have topography in a park. You can't have that in a street or a plaza, obviously, but this one has a lot of function too for looking out at the harbor, and especially for being able to be watching your kids play in the South Sports Field for a whole audience area. Next. It's fun how these slides build. So this is a view of looking at the edge of the studio and the extension of the bike trail and the promenade, and just understand the robustness of how we're thinking about planting this edge. It incorporates the rain garden planting, looking very carefully and working with the Parks Department on what succeeded on site already, but then augmenting it as you get closer to the studio with having more of a vertical regime of planting, vines, some trees, aspen trees. We'll talk about more planting in a minute, just to make this feel like an embrace of green as you walk down this axis. Thank you. Go on. This is the same picture in section. We can see the field on the left, the dimensions of the existing and planned walkways, bike trails, planting beds, which has the benches incorporated into it as well, and the rain garden. Just a picture, not looking one way or the other, just sort of diagonally at this, just to get the sense of all that layers of landscape and the variety in the planting we want to bring to this. While it is spatially an extrusion that you walk through, having variety along the way, I think is a great experience. And this is really important too. This is the importance of having that thick green edge when you're in the fields and it's not just the buildings coming down, but you see that horizon line of green. I think that's really going to make it feel like a cohesive, completed park. Next, please. Some details. The grade changes a bit in the relationship of the studio to the park levels as you go. And we've just gone through a very careful study about how that is graded, and we can just march through these. Planted, the planting area gets narrower as you go to the north, and then the relationship of the studio is up above the park. And that's how and then at the very northern edge, it starts to get narrower still. And that's the way it is today. But what we're doing is maintaining that vertical presence of green. And here's a rendering of that. Even though that guy should not be in the bike lane, he's just so darn happy with how great this looks that he's doing it. Anyway, we think this is just a really important kind of front door to whether you're there just to walk around the park, going to a soccer game, whatever, that this kind of experience of walking on the river is just the core backbone for a waterfront. Next, please. So now we're going to switch to talking about the southern entrance, which is a Port Authority property. And so far, so good. We've got some great plans that we're working in collaboration with them on making some improvements to this entrance experience. If we go to the next, you can see the existing conditions. This is currently fenced off by chain link, and it's sort of a no man's land. And this is what you see as you turn the corner around what would be the studio site, looking into it on the right, and at the front door where you'd enter into the park, you can see the one rail, active rail line, and the crossing right there at 50th. There we go. I wondered about that. So here's the proposed reconfiguration. We're able to take a little bit more of the site and actually continue this kind of extrusion of the promenade and bring it out to the street, going through more of the middle of the site. Again, matching the light poles, matching a lot of the kind of planting that have spatial variety as you walk around. We think this is important in this new alignment because right now you go due west and then you have that sharp corner, and that's never good with bikeways and things and just feeling safe. So it's nice to have always a way of seeing where you're going. And then hopefully people will be excited by the idea that for those of you who might not be wanting to walk your 2-year-old all the way down the hill across all those avenues and industrial streets, that you might have the opportunity sometimes to drive there. And Doug and his team have worked hard to keep this idea going to accommodate some parking. I guess I've talked about all this. In addition to those two main features, we are providing obviously some amenities for bike parking, potentially a city bike dock, things to really sort of show the invitation that this is public access to a park. Right now, it's a little bit of a secret that the park's back there, right? So next. So this is just an image from back in January when we spoke to some of you about the play area and what we heard. So we want to sort of report back. We also do want to underscore that some of the things that we love about the park, and we think we heard from you that we weren't off base in saying, like, you had the 3 things that are really powerful about this park is the water's edge and the exploration of nature that is already there. Some of it was planned and intentionally planted, and some of it has just come up over the years. Next. And these are breathtaking views. I just love it every time I go to the park. Then there's something I mentioned earlier, just the topography. We all know what's underneath that topography is a lot of fill you don't want to get into, but it has created actually a wonderful thing. Most of the time I see people running up to those hills, running down, finding their spot, and they offer tremendous views. And I just think that's one of those simple, curious things that people love. Then with the promenade and the activities, the sport fields are key. Always programming and keeping the place active. Next. So we heard a lot about the design of a play area and park user needs. Not just having a piece of play equipment plopped down and feeling sort of like someone went to a store and bought it and left it there. That was important. That it fits with the park, and that it takes advantage of the views and is also sensitive to the views. we heard a lot about active and sensory play, and we heard a lot about accessibility and inclusive play that can address special needs. And then, almost like it should be capitalized, shade, any opportunity to create shade. And as I've mentioned already, the topography is the result of capping on the site, capping fill on the site. And this was and then the second point is really important to us. This is how we came at it. It's not just that we need an accessible this or that. It was sort of hit us in the chest that, well, wait a minute, one of the central features of the park, this hilltop with all these views, is not accessible. And maybe that's part of what we need to be addressing here. And of course, we need to have flat areas it's just a part of how you ergonomically make play equipment accessible. It needs to have some flat area. And so we were torn with the just love of the topography and the hill, but knowing that that's a challenge from an accessibility perspective. But we think we've come up with a solution, which we're calling the Play Hill. And it features all the inclusive accessible play equipment that we think is going to be really enjoyed here. It has 2 ADA walkways into the top of the hill, giving everyone views out to the harbor and the skyline. It preserves the few existing trees that those black locusts that every time I go there, I see people in the sunny days underneath, preserving those, and then provide a lot more of that along the play area and the lawns. And very critically important, we've had a very considerable process of working with the Parks Department on operational maintenance, and they've really helped us with the play equipment selections and programming to make it accessible to all the things we just heard that we had heard from this community. Next. So photos that you obviously already know, the kind of the height of this hill, the kind of views of skyline back to Brooklyn, to Manhattan, New Jersey that you are given, but also the views down onto the rest of the park and the playing fields. Next. And I love this again, every time I see it. It's just these hills on top of the hill just are so animating, and I think are one of the central features of the park. And that's what we're making accessible in this proposal. So when we get into the design here, you just go ahead to the next slide and get into this. What you see on the left, this is sort of our thought process, if you will. We take note of the lawn and the main path relationship, that main access for people, preserve the trees there, and address some poor drainage issues, but really take note of those little hills that are on top of the hill. Making it accessible, those are the 2 walkways in the dashed line in the middle diagram that bring people up and sort of present all these landscapes to you as you journey up to the hilltop. And then, one is really, if you're coming from the north, it serves that, and one serves coming from the south. It's also important that the one connecting from the north is close proximity of the playground to the comfort station that's there. And then the last diagram is nestled down in between those little hillocks. We get to, from various parts of the play experience, you get to frame different views of the harbor, to the skyline, to the naturalized area, to the rest of the park, to the lawn at the top of the hill, etc. So that's the idea. Now, just getting into the plan some more, detailing the paths. You can see we're trying to plant the edges of the sort of lower portions between these hills with lots of shade trees. And you can see, maybe as a little detail that's sort of cool, where some of the stone blocks that are on the field side of the hill that we would be disturbing in order to make this accessible ramp, we bring back together and create a little scramble connection between the north edge of the north field to that walkway. just as a little fun shortcut. But all of this, these two paths culminate at the top of the hill, again, with the overlooking, especially to the north. And then you go south to the gates. That's, again, this is all slightly set down into the earth, just by, inches and maybe a foot. And then you come in and you have two play areas, one 5 through 12 and one for younger children. And you have a seating lining the edge of the mound. So you can start to see, oh, thank you. All the seating where you can look into the play equipment areas, and that seating lines that whole western edge, if you can see that. Pardon me. And the safety surface tiles create an animated pattern that's darker and more colors of the landscape as it gets closer to the landscape. And then it's just a little spark of color underneath the play equipment. And then there's a gate that opens out to the flat part of the lawn, looking to the southeast. I don't know if there are questions there. A little section through the play area where you can see that how we're pushing it down into grade a little bit. We're never going into the cap. And just the relationship, the topography of the hill to that space. So when you're down on the playground, you may not have the view when you're looking directly at the hill, but when you move to a position where the hill, you get to a valley between the hills, then you have a framed view. Next. And this is why, especially along the south and a lot of all the edges, honestly, we're planting those canopy trees and orienting the play equipment close to that. So you get this kind of dialogue between being up in the play equipment, the trees that are elevated. And I think spatially, this is a wonderful relationship. But then you can also see people on the hills around it. So there's a lot of visibility. Next. So all the play equipment pieces, we have a lot of sensory walls and sort of imaginative play. You have a lot of sort of small physical challenges appropriate to a 2 to 5 age group, and some small climbers, but really like this kind of bridge. Again, this motif of being lifted up and coming back down is important. And the cozy domes are also great things to, some kids with disabilities or on the spectrum find those little spaces really comforting to be able to explore and get into. And then we have the talk tubes, which is just always a hit on with this age group, to be able to yell in one thing and the sound comes out to a friend or a parent. Next. From 5 to 12, hopefully you can see that the gray decking, what that is that's making these ramp panels that make the majority of this piece of equipment fully accessible. And we think philosophically, another important thing that I wanted to mention is that we resisted the idea of just making an area for specialized equipment. We just don't think that's the right thing to do. Kids learn from each other. They learn tolerance and ideas and explore together and build relationships. And so it's most important that ADA is integrated, an integration of people working to, playing together. And I think we really philosophically thought that was important, and that's what we've done here. There's the central Skyport Climber, which is a really exciting piece. There's one in my neighborhood and it's constantly flocked with people. And there's a lot to talk about on this image. It's jam-packed around this linear spine. And again, that spine is oriented close to the trees. So you're almost like, this perspective is as if you're in the trees looking down on this. So that shade aspect will be really lovely. Next. And I guess we just wanted to end on this, that, we feel like we've completed a lot of the important spaces of the park to make it feel whole, that background spine, places to sit, other places to sit and actually be at the water's edge. And then what we love about the playground is that it's tucked in and maintains these views, all these shaded hill vantage points. And I guess that's where we're ending with that message, that we think we've preserved the architecture of that hill, but we've brought in a lot of more people to it and made it fully accessible. Are there other slides, or are there questions, or how someone help me with the facilitation?
So are you done with the presentation then?
Yes.
Everybody from Steiner, are you done with the presentation?
Yes, that is the end of our presentation.
Okay. Victor, I see one hand up from a board member. Would this be a good time to invite people to raise their hands?
They could raise their hands, but I would like to start out by, I got like 3 questions I want to ask. And I have a lot more questions, but I'm sure the other people will ask. And then we'll let Cindy ask her questions. Then we'll open up to the committees, and then of course the board members.
I have dozens myself, but I'll save mine to the end.
Okay. Just real quick for Steiner, if you could give the committees a copy of this presentation, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, you mentioned numerous opportunities for employment. I'm just curious, how will you get that information out to the community in Sunset Park to ensure that you know, they have opportunities to secure some employment, as well as I see you had high school stuff there also to get to the high school students. And my last question has to do with maintenance. You mentioned maintenance, that you had a conversation, or you spoke to Parks about maintenance of the playground. And I'm just curious, how will that be done, and who's responsible for the maintenance of the equipment? Because, you know, as time go on, things seem to deteriorate or wear out or whatever it is. How is that going to be maintained? That's my questions.
I'll answer it. The Department of Parks and Recreation is taking care of the maintenance. That's part of why they were very involved in the planning of what's to be built and how it would be built and what materials and equipment it would be. And EDC and Parks are responsible for the maintenance of the park.
Okay, the information for the community for employment, how would that be done by your company?
Debbie, I'm going to turn it to you.
Sure. So I know you had a couple of pieces to that question, and we did highlight our job opportunities. As we talked about in our last meeting, and as mentioned here, for our construction jobs, we are working through the city's Hire NYC program as required by our deal with EDC. And so we're lucky enough to be able to use their Hire NYC program, which is administered by SBIDC right here in Sunset Park. So we're working closely with them, or will work closely with them as we get closer to, you know, beginning construction jobs, you know, and employment there, to market heavily to the local community, and you know, try to get as much local hiring there as possible, through means that we can develop with SBIDC, with EDC, through Hire NYC and that sort of thing. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, that's fine. And just a copy of the presentation if possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Cindy?
Yeah, I'm curious about just a follow-on question, and maybe this is a question for Christine, who's here from NYC EDC, but it has to do with the maintenance contract between EDC and the Parks Department, and just, you know, we obviously want to make sure that this park is well maintained, and if there's anything that Christine could share to that end about making sure that there's proper funding support for NYC Parks, like, is there going to be a change in the allocation of funds to support the Parks Department to maintain this playground? So that's one question that I have, and maybe I'll leave it there for now. I do have one question after Christine shares that I'd like to follow up with.
Sure. Hi, Cindy. Hi, everybody. Hi. I'm Christine Palialunga. I'm with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I'm the executive director for the Sunset Park portfolio, which includes the Brooklyn Army Terminal, the Brooklyn Wholesale Meat Market, and Bush Terminal Made in New York campus. So EDC has an operating agreement with the Department of Parks to operate and maintain Bush Terminal Piers Park. We signed that MOU, I believe, honestly, it was 2014, but it might have been a couple years later. And that primarily includes phase one. It contemplates the future phase two, which this is the completion of phase two. We are currently talking to Parks about opening that MOU back up, making it more current, revisiting the funding structure to make sure that everything is that we're sufficiently funding the maintenance and operations of the park. So yes, EDC is working closely with Parks on this. It's something it's a very current conversation, and we have every interest in making sure the park is well maintained and paid for properly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful if we could take a look at the equipment again. Thank you. And if you could kind of walk us through, like, if I'm a child who uses a wheelchair, how can I experience what we're looking at right here? Like what features would a child who's using a wheelchair be able to enjoy?
Okay. How do I do this? Do you see my cursor?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Great. Okay. Well, I'm also wondering if when Tim can go into the details a little bit, but I'll start this. So yes, we have the ramps that brings you up into this, but we also have numerous, like there's a transfer platform here, right? So you can both, whether it's you said specifically wheelchair, and you can be wheeled up into this, but if you also dismount, you can use the transfer platforms to enter into the same location and engage the talk tubes and move along some of the small climber challenges. All of this stuff that's sort of the tail, if you will, of the arch nets are all designed to have at least 50% of that is sort of engageable from that height, if you will. As you move up into this, again, you I think would be off of per se a wheelchair, but you can hoist yourself up to this interface panel right here and be elevated throughout this whole position and ultimately make it to the spiral slide. I believe we can make that to be both by the own sort of mobility that you can manage through hoisting and moving, or being assisted with the caregiver to these points, rolling the wheelchair through this. I don't know how to get more detailed, but all of these, there are most of the interfaces at the edges from the flat ground that it sits on are challenges that can be useful and fun. And then the climber has kind of a lower level. The central climber here has lower levels that you can get off the wheelchair and hoist yourself into, and then use your strength to move up into it. Meanwhile, there's the space around it. The caregiver can assist and help at the perimeter if needed. I don't know if Tim.
I think let's have, hey Guller, why don't we have Chris Noel from the Parks Department, who's the Director of Accessibility, because he's done some site visits with us. He's the expert on accessibility and was integral on the overall like design and thought process of this. Chris, do you mind talking about the equipment and also the general experience at the park?
Sure. Well, as we do with most of our playgrounds, we try to make sure that it's inclusive play for children of all abilities, whether they have sensory disabilities, vision disability, or they have mobility disabilities. So as you see, there's a lot of contrast in the color, but also as mentioned before, when the wheelchair user, I believe that's the question you asked, approaches the ramp, they have play panels on both sides, and then you get to the landing. And then you're coming to the next ramp that goes up, and you have more play panels on both sides of there. And I believe there's a play panel we can keep going forward. Yep, right there, to the right there. There's additional play panels. So what we wanted to do is to make sure that we give children an opportunity to kind of get off of the ground with a little bit of height. Obviously, with space constraints, we couldn't go all the way up as we wanted to. But for children that do use wheelchairs and have slight mobility, we have the Skyport Climber. And there's an entrance there where, yep, over there. There's an entrance there where you can go to the panels and climb up. So it's almost like transferring from each panel to each panel. As we mentioned before, you have a lot of space underneath. So where you see the Swiggle Knots Bridge, as well as the large arch net, we actually worked with the playground equipment manufacturer to put that there so that when children are climbing up, you can have a child with a wheelchair that can easily go through and come back and forth, so that even though they're not able to climb, they still feel like they're part of the experience with their friends. And even with the 2 to 5 area, this is the 5 to 12, the 2 to 5 area, if we can go to that really quickly, as you see, we have the quiet, cozy domes for children with sensory disabilities. Sometimes the loud noise, they need to get away. What we found is that the quiet, cozy domes are areas where they can go and kind of collect themselves. So that's been working out well for us. And as you see, there are a lot of sensory panels that are geared towards children 2 to 5. They're at a level where a child in a wheelchair would be able to use both of them, as well as the Boppity Bop Bridge. and that's a new one for us. I don't think we've used that, but children can be able to get over the caregiver, obviously. But when it comes down to it, and that's what we try to do with all of our new play grounds, we want the play experience to be so that a child with a disability can play with other children, as was mentioned, so that you don't necessarily have all of the accessible play equipment on one side and all of the non-accessible equipment on one side. We try to integrate it all. So that's why in the 5 to 12, you see that there was an area where you do go up the ramp, but then there's an area where it stops. But we wanted to make sure that we included play all throughout so that the child can go through and play, with their friends and feel a part of it. So for this design, we definitely tried our best to make sure we included everyone and every child with a disability or not. That's the whole thing about inclusive play. The main feature is play. And I think we kind of did it with this. We went through various iterations, as Davey can attest to, and I'm sure the designers. But I think this was a great situation that we came to where it looks like fun for every child that comes here, as well as making it to the playground. That was something that was very important, the entrance. There was either an entrance that would have gone through the side of the comfort station, where it's squeezed between the comfort station and the softball field. And we didn't want to go that route, obviously, because when there's events going on in a softball field, it could kind of stop the flow of traffic. So you can see it slightly right there with the arrow. If you go to the left and you're going up, that could have been an entrance, but it wouldn't have been good. Yep, if the cursor can go up. So that's a rock scramble. So if kids that are ambulatory do want to climb up there and go and have fun to the playground, that's fine. But we wanted to make sure that we had a truly accessible ADA entrance. So once you're kind of looking at the views, you can kind of go and be able to safely, at a low slope, which was the key, to get into the playground safely. And then you come into the play. So I think we've done a lot to make sure that this site was good for all children and adults and caregivers who come with their children. So hopefully your community board agrees.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Just kind of walking us through being a kid and engaging with this in different ways. So I really appreciate both of you who spoke and sharing your thoughtfulness about this design. A follow-up question has to do with the type of equipment that's going to be used. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of this equipment would be the type of equipment that could be, in terms of maintenance, easily replaced because it's typical equipment that NYC Parks would source elsewhere. I know NYC Parks has so much data from all of the playgrounds across the city about what's durable, what's, really like accessible, how kids are playing on the equipment. So could you speak to that about just longevity and being able to support and replace those parts as needed over time?
Well, one thing I will say is that the play equipment manufacturer we chose was pretty much the more higher end of the play equipment manufacturers, and their equipment is very durable. Their parts, honestly, from my experiences, their parts and play equipments break the least. And that's another reason it was a great choice for this playground. And it's always replaceable. As you see with the play panels, it's surrounded by a frame. So all you have to do, if it does break, they could just pop it out and put it in. We've even had pieces replaced that were past warranty, meaning many, many years afterwards. And this play equipment manufacturer, it was a site in Queens, Elmhurst Park Playground. They actually came and repaired it because they realized we went through such an effort to make that such a universally accessible playground. If you've never been there, you need to go check out in Queens. But they came and replaced it, and it was built more than 10 years ago. So I think in terms of the durability of the equipment, we're fine. And in terms of if it does break, if we do have vandalism, because that happens, this is New York City, the piece can easily be replaced by the vendor. So I'm completely confident that all of the play pieces here and the structures will last for a very long time.
Thank you. And one last question is, do you have companion seating up in the area that's near the play equipment? And could you, I saw it in the key, but it's like hard to see on my screen. You could show us where that is?
Yeah, it's all around. We made sure to include companion seating.
CS means all the companion seats.
Oh, great. This is great. Thank you for zooming in. Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
And we have an ADA water fountain right there as well. So yeah, we tried to make sure that we had everything that every park goer or playground user will need and be completely comfortable.
Great, thank you so much. That's all my questions. And Jeremy, I don't know if you've been monitoring hands.
Yes, I have. And Victor asked me to call upon people, so I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Katie Walsh, you're first.
Thanks. I know we're spending a fair amount of time talking about the playground, but I just wanted to go to that south entrance. The last time we had the presentation from Steiner, we were asking more questions about this, and I'm just looking, I think it was Ben who was on, of course, Doug was here talking about it as well, but just to talk a little bit more, you're saying so as a reminder, at EDC, this park opened in 2014. We didn't get this entrance until 2017. So it took 3 years to get this south entrance in 2017 to even open. And so it was a big deal when it opened. So there's two things I heard you say, which is that talks are progressing with the port and we're hopeful. Could you explain a little bit more about that? And I think Doug, Steiner had talked about this the last time, that the entrance, like that we're all on the same page. This entrance is not going to close until we have security that an entrance is going to be built, because we should not be waiting another 3 years for this thing to get constructed. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more certainty than I'm hearing right now in the design proposals.
I understand your concern. We are contractually obligated, and we would do it anyway, to not close off the entrance at the south until the new one is open. So that will be maintained throughout until the new one is open. And with respect to the Port Authority, We've had very good, they're pretty much on board. My team might say, it might not be I's dotted and T's crossed, but I think they're on for the plan. And it represents a big plus in terms of the width, the walking path, the bike paths, the lighting, seating, and the parking spaces. So we think it's a good solution, and also as the safety, as Gulliver alluded to before. And we tried to screen it with some nice landscaping.
And it says Port Authority access only, and it's sort of vanilla colored. What is that use? What does that look like? Right, because that's the experience of the person walking down. Right now, we've got this beautiful mural that has had now some vandalism that needs to be taken care of with groundswell. So that was going to be my next question: is what's happening with the groundswell mural? But first, let's tackle this. What's this Port Authority access only vanilla bit?
Given that it's Port Authority land, we were able to get what you see in green and the pathways, but they want to maintain for maintenance. We don't really know what it would be used for any more than they don't use it now. So they want to keep that within their purview. And I think if you go to our site plan, you will see the landscaping on our site. So you'd have landscaping, to the south and to the north, albeit not adjacent to that pathway.
Okay, so would love to get something from Port Authority, which is just visibility in terms of understanding what that is. Is that just an extended parking lot? I see your parking lot, but I'm saying the Port Authority access.
No, I think this comes down to, I think we addressed it in a prior meeting. If someday the float bridge is reactivated for use as a float bridge, getting cargo from the water to a train, and if they activate this, we would have to come up with a completely new, accessible, safe design for access at the south end of the park, and we agreed to do that. We don't really think that would ever happen given the services elsewhere that do that same thing. So hang on, I forgot what the other part of what I was going to say.
I was just,
parking.
whether they would use, I mean, I know this is Port Authorities. So the question is to the Port Authority, but we don't know what they're going to use it for, basically.
There's been no talk from them about parking, and I don't think the goal is to have any parking there.
Yeah,
I think
it's unlikely that they'll use it for anything, really. But can't promise.
The gate you see at the end of the parking area would stay in a locked position. So I think they're thinking generally is, if they need to get across or do something, it's there, but it's not really a typically accessed area.
Okay. Yeah. The volunteer weeds perhaps is what would be there by Port Authority is my guess. But
and Katie, I just want to clarify one thing too, which is the parking lot there. That's for the public. That's public. It's just a vanilla bit. I want to know with Port Authority. And then the mural, there's a mural along the south entrance. What happens with the mural?
Debbie? Well, we right now do not plan to keep that appendage, and we are open to suggestions on how to deal with the mural.
Have you guys reached out to and contacted Groundswell? And Uprose, I think, also worked on it.
I do not think so.
Okay, so maybe as a follow-up next step, I'd encourage you to follow up with Groundswell have that conversation with them about that mural project. So we'll take that as a follow-up. I have another question, and this really goes to Christine and EDC, but we heard a little bit about this, and I think it's in the questions that Cindy was asking, but with this park specifically, the fact that Parks is doing the maintenance, but that EDC does the infrastructure and the budget planning, I have serious concern. So again, kind of pivoting this to Christine and to the EDC. It just continues to be a problem that EDC is responsible for managing this park and the infrastructure. We don't have any other examples of this. And I would propose that we actually you're in discussions with, the Parks Department as an MOU. And I don't, in this discussion as this meeting progresses, but I'd like to introduce a resolution that Parks is responsible for the infrastructure and that it's EDC gives this up so that we can have a normal functioning park as we should be, like every other neighborhood and every other community. And so that we have, again, the EDC passes the infrastructure and just treats us like a normal park to the Parks Department. So I can come back to that theme, but that's a resolution that I would like to introduce to the Parks Committee. And I can give, more specific reasons why the challenges that we've had with EDC running this park over the years. But I think we're at the point now that we have to have a serious discussion about not having EDC controlling this park anymore, and give it to the Parks Department to maintain the infrastructure as is handled in every other neighborhood and every other part of the city, except for some reason us in Sunset Park.
Thank you, Katie.
Do you want me to respond? Or
no, I think it would go to Victor as part of the as a member of the Parks Committee, that I would want to introduce this resolution, and I can do it. I can follow your lead, Victor, in terms of when you want me to introduce it, but I just wanted to share that I would be introducing this resolution and just kind of bring that to your attention, Christine, since we have you on the line.
On that, Katie, I agree with you 100%. That's going to be one of my questions later on. The sooner the better for me.
sure, I'm happy to talk about that. Probably a subsequent committee meeting might be a more appropriate place, since we're focusing on the Steiner project tonight, but I'm happy to dig into that and talk more about the EDC Parks relationship, and I'm sure that it would probably be helpful, especially if this is a resolution that we're intending to table. But
So Katie, am I correct? You have introduced that now?
Yeah, I'm officially introducing a resolution to propose that the EDC hands over the infrastructure and operation management to the Parks Department of Bush Terminal Park. And if I've gotten that language right in terms of their separate and discrete roles related to this park, but that is what I am proposing.
I have not heard a second.
I will second.
I'm not sure you can second as a, I would need the ruling on that.
I will second.
Then we have a second. So Victor, then you have a seconded motion on the floor.
But
actually, Katie, I should ask, which committee are you introducing that to? I assume it's Parks.
The Parks Committee.
She said Parks. She said Parks.
I'm just making sure of that. Victor, I guess there would be discussion on the motion.
Yes, is there any from the committee? Anyone from the committee?
So
yes, this is
we've had
David
hands
Strada.
up, I guess, just as David has cut in. Sorry.
Oh, no, to your preference on how you want to manage it. Are you okay for discussion on the motion?
Yes, that question was for who, me or for Katie?
For the chair of the committee.
My personal opinion is, I think all operations to this park should be turned over to Parks. Because as we go through things to get for this park, it seems that if we talk to EDC, it's the park's problem. We talk to Parks, it's EDC's problem. So I think if it's under Parks, which it is a park, as Katie said, as other parks fall under Parks, everything that comes with it, the financing, the maintenance, or whatever, should be handled by Parks. I think this park in my opinion, should be taken away from EDC.
Are there other board members who want to comment on the motion?
Yeah, I just had a specific question to Katie about clarifying the language about infrastructure. So, there are varying understandings about above ground infrastructure, underground infrastructure, harborside bulkheads, the sinkhole, on the 43rd Street side. Is your proposal, how does your proposal differ from the current arrangement with EDC kind of being the below ground steward and parks being the above ground steward? And do we have any assurance that Parks has the wherewithal, the capability, the resources to do what EDC should be doing, for example, below ground and at the bulkheads?
So right now the arrangement is that, and again, this might be an invitation for Christine to jump in, but if I understand it correctly, right now you've got Parks doing the operation and maintenance, but EDC does the infrastructure. And this is a unique setup that it currently exists. And we can list out all of the problems and challenges over the many years that this unique setup has had and caused our Sunset Park community. So what I am proposing is that, and then you're asking this other question, David, but then we might pose this to the Parks Department. But what I'm proposing is that this park is like every other park in New York City, in the sense that the Parks Department does the operations and maintenance, as well as responsibility for things like the infrastructure, right? So it's let's treat it like, let's set it up as a park, and not have this like EDC infrastructure management and parks operations and maintenance, because it's not working. It's not been working for years.
Thank you. That clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Other board members who would like to speak on this matter, you could just unmute yourself. Victor, I see nobody additional. You have a seconded motion.
I just have I do have a question, which is that I would, to David's question, I would actually be interested in hearing, knowing more about the arrangement that is currently in place. And so I just want to express that. And also, if we can clarify, is it just the Parks Committee that's going to be voting, or will be all board members present?
My understanding is it would just be the Parks Committee.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody additional?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Really good trade offers for
what Cindy just said had crossed my mind also. I as a park committee member, I would like clarification on that one.
And I don't know, since I'm participating in discussion, just full disclosure, I have a conflict of interest because I work, my company works with EDC, so I have to raise that if I'm participating in discussion. So I just wanted to make sure I did that.
The Parks Department does not have a budget. And that bothers me. Because if they don't have a budget, and we're adding another park to them, are we going to be serviced? It takes 3 years after, what's that? The park on 6th Avenue and 50th Street?
Rainbow Playground?
That playground, we had a scoping meeting in, what was that? Refresh my memory. Was that 2018 or 2019? And at the scoping meeting, we were told it would take 3 years. So if it takes 3 years to build, to replace equipment in a playground at millions of dollars, is the Parks Department going to service this park? It hasn't yet. So I'm kind of leery on this one. But I do have questions regarding the presentation.
Joan, we'll get back to those
When my
questions.
time comes, when my time comes.
Joan, please put your hand back up again because I'm going to go by the hands up for that. It's just that a motion supersedes that.
I didn't lose my place, I hope.
I know Joanna had a question. Johanna Bjorkin.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm also confused about I have my hand up because I have questions about the presentation, but I also don't understand procedurally because I'm a member of the Parks Committee, but I am not a member of the Community Board, what my role is here in terms of this.
So you are a member of the committee, you do get to vote. This is a vote for the committee. And please keep your hand up for Steiner. Any other committee members or board members? Victor?
I have my hand up, but it's not related to this.
So Cynthia, a seconded motion has privilege, so that's what's being discussed right now. Please keep your hand up and we'll get back to the main presentation once we get the vote over with.
All right, Deborah, let's go through the roll for the committee.
Okay. So I will call committee members, and it's only committee members, folks. This is regarding the motion that Katie made. So Victor Swinton?
Yes.
Sylvia Augusto? Victor, by the way, I should have acknowledged it. I recorded your vote. Johanna Bjorkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Joan Body?
Yes.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd?
Yes.
Thank you. Joseph Canale? Mary Jo Eister? Nicole Huang? John Fontillis? Zachary Jacey? Daniel Murphy? Fred Wolf? 4-0, yeses have it.
And Katie Walsh, I have to vote. Jeremy.
Oh, Katie, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes.
5-0. Okay, sorry about that. Victor, should we get back to regular programming?
Yes, please.
All right, I have Cynthia Gonzalez next.
Yes, hi. I want to thank Mr. Steiner and Mr. Shepherd for a really great presentation. I thought it was quite amazing, the plans for this, for this park. My question has to do with the drainage areas that they are planning to address. Now, if I remember correctly, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was in the playground area where the drainage was a problem. And I want to know how that is going to be mitigated. And also, when is this project due for completion?
So it's very much on the Parks Department goals whenever they do something like this, especially with safety surface and anything with slopes, where you have paths moving through many feet of topography. You have to think carefully about drainage, and we are adding what's called impervious cover, like pavement. And so we need to take care of that in terms of what we're putting down now in this proposal. So we've worked out a plan with our civil engineers that all the water that collects on the pavements that we've added is collected and conveyed to the nearest main line near the main path. You know, so it uses the accessible ramp as basically the same path for moving that water out there. So that's the first part of the answer, is that we have to be very diligent about the added impervious area. And the second thing was simply, you know, flat lawns can get mucky and wet, and it's just, and you have areas that you want to make sure have positive drainage. And, you know, the whole park is designed with these swales at the edges of the sports fields. As long as it can get to that, that's we're in a good spot, because that's a healthy thing to do for this landscape, where we can collect the water. And because it's a capped site, you can't assume the water is recharging the ground. It has to be conveyed. And there's already a very robust system built with the cap infrastructure to convey that. So we just have to pay attention carefully to, when we make changes, that we don't interrupt that and we do the responsible thing. And I'm just saying we have, and our civil engineers are on it, and the Parks Department has been there along the way to make sure that we've done that job.
And when is the project due to be completed?
I can speak to that. We plan to start next year, and I think the same timeline as for the studio project, it should be done within 36 months from starting.
Thank you. I have Johanna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. I have Johanna Bjorkin next.
Thank you so much. I just want to say this was really exciting. I remember sitting in the up row space, I think it was like 10 years ago, maybe close to that, when they unveiled the design for this park, and we were all like, wait, that's it? And it feels so good to have something that actually we can really, really be excited about. And I am excited. I'm like super, the idea of the scramble gives me, like, it makes me excited as an adult kid. And I love the idea that kids can climb up those and see the harbor, and that is a destination and a challenge. It makes me very, very excited. So, and all the thoughtfulness that goes into this. My questions, I've got a bunch of questions. One is, will some of them are small. One is, will the picnic areas encompass grilling? Because that is definitely something that I'm sure our community has a lot of interest in. And when our community gathers, there's always a lot of food, and that would be really great. And another small question is there thought to what areas are going to be used by skateboarders, because they're going to come and they're going to be there. So where the skateboarders will go. And then also just the naturalized area. What will right now it's fenced off, it is used informally, not formally. And what's going to happen with that area, with the border area? That fence is terrible. Will it be replaced, removed? And also, what happens to the parking lot? Does the current parking lot go? And so then it's just the 50th Street parking lot, or what's happening down there at that entrance? Those are questions. Thanks.
So wait, the three were the parking lot. You want to make sure the parking lot on the north is staying. I think that's outside my purview, but I believe it's staying. Sorry, and then the skateboarders. it's really hard to predict where they'll be. I don't know if that was the question, but anytime, it's a park, everyone's invited. And I guess there's no way to sort of know this, but our responsibility is to do things like make sure that the benches have armrests that also do double duty to make sure they don't use a bench as a, whatever you call it, a rail to grind a skateboard on, or disincentivize things that are designed for different activities, non-skateboarder activities, to dissuade that activity. But a skateboarder being on the pavement, that's in a path, that's gonna happen, you know? So, and I'm sorry, the third one, I scrambled the order in my brain, so I apologize.
Naturalized area, and I'm pro skateboarder, so don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no, I think those kind of sports are spectacles, and people like maybe they say they hate it, but secretly I think they love it. But you know, that's my opinion. Sorry, the naturalized area. What was the question again?
What is there a plan for it? Is there what? And if nothing else, what's the bordered areas between it? What are those going to be like?
Yeah, that's sort of not part of our thing. I think it's important that to the original design and that it is remain a naturalized area. But I'm not sure I can speak to the overall long-term plan or the status of a fence.
Maybe Davey or Chris, would you be able to talk about the naturalized area? And
I can jump in here. Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Davey. I'm from the operations division here in Brooklyn and New York City Parks. Right now, there's no plan for the naturalized area, Johanna. It's outside of the scope of work for this project as well. As far as the range fence goes, I'm sure if there are specific sections that are worse than others, we can just let me know, maybe through either Victor or Jeremy offline, and I'm happy to kind of work with our maintenance teams to figure out if we can patch it up.
Thank you, Davey. And thank you, Johanna. I have Joan Body next.
I also want to thank Mr. Shepherd and Doug Johanna for coming back and presenting this. It's wonderful. The majority of my questions have been answered. When in 36 months will it be completed, approximately?
I'm hoping
that's what, the 2024?
It depends when we get started next year and time of season, the season when we start. I think we will not, where we're working in the phase 2 area, it's already fenced off, so there shouldn't be any disturbance. I think that we're looking at 24 to 36 months of construction, sort of depending when we start, what time of year we start. And I don't want to overpromise, but I think it's a range.
Okay.
And likewise the playground. Some people on my team wanted to do one and then the other phase. I'm happy to just go at both at the same time.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you. I have Sam Sierra next.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We could hear you fine.
Hi, first of all, thank you for this very comprehensive presentation. I have a question with regard to the playground usage. I guess this question is more for the Parks Department. And it's a question and perhaps a consideration. How would a parent and child, I mean, there were some great examples given on how someone with a wheelchair can use the equipment and enjoy the equipment. How would a parent and child know that the equipment can be used in that manner, like with the wheelchair? Are there special markings or like illustrations indicating that they can enjoy it? So that was my question. And if not, perhaps there could be consideration to perhaps having some type of illustrations indicating that they can enjoy the equipment as well.
Like, I can answer that really quickly. It's a playground, so it's about play and exploration. So if a child goes in there, meaning we can't say, okay, wheelchair user, go to this ramp and then go to the left. It's more so letting the child explore. So no matter what their ability level, and that's kind of why we wanted to include so many play pieces that cater to so many different children with disabilities and without. It's about play. So for example, if a child with a wheelchair comes in and they're with their parent, if I was their parent, I would just say, go in whatever you like, just play on it, and that's why we try to make it inclusive, so that you don't necessarily need instructions. You just have to show up. Where I think way back before, when there was so much accessible equipment that was on the market, you might have needed it because it might have said, okay, well, what can I use in this playground? But here, there's so many options, from the talk tubes to the play panels to the ramping. It's almost like when you bring a child to a toy store, it's like, hey, whatever you see you like, good, as long as it's affordable, get it, So it's almost a playground. Go and have fun to your heart's extent, and I think that's what we accomplished here. So not to discredit your question, but generally in playgrounds, we don't put instructions. We just want the children to play. So it's our job to make sure that we have something there that excites them, not something that's boring and, they might need to figure out. But even if that is the case, that's a part of play, exploration, and challenging themselves per se, which is why we have that Skyport Climber.
Christopher, is it accurate to say that all New York City playgrounds should be accessible and they should expect this playground to be accessible when they get there?
Of course, well, it's the law, it's the ADA. So we have to have a level of accessibility to the play pieces and equipment. But yes, all of our new playgrounds that we've constructed, we always make sure, as we call it now, we go over and beyond the ADA. So that we don't just limit our playgrounds to just the standard. We try to go above the standard because we want kids to always be excited in the playgrounds in their neighborhood and to always go back and find something new to do.
So Sam, they should be expecting it when they go there.
Yes.
Right, but it's not. It isn't labeled as such. I mean, how many wheelchairs do you see in the park playgrounds?
I see a number. And I go do inspections on playgrounds. I see children with autism. I see children with vision loss. I see children with wheelchairs that can ambulate out of them or need to stay in them. But we've never.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think if it was perhaps labeled as such, like a wheelchair accessible or maybe we have more folks use it.
I get where you're going. What you need to do is go to our website. I think that's the question you're asking. How do I find out what's accessible in the playground and what's not, what can cater to my child and what not? We actually just upgraded our website so that you can sort. If you want to find a playground with sensory equipment, you could do that. If you want to find a playground with ramped equipment, you could do that. I think that might be more towards what your question is geared. If you want to do research before you go to the playground and make sure that it caters to your child, you could go to our website, nyc.gov/parks. And
great. Thank you very much. I know the web. I'll check. Thank you again.
Yeah, I think that might be the answer to your question. We normally wouldn't put instructions in a playground because it's a playground. Whatever the child can find to play with that excites them, that's our goal.
Okay. Thank you once again.
Good question.
Somebody reminded me in the Q&A that there was also a question if barbecuing would be allowed in the park. I don't know if that would be for EDC or parks.
That's Davey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we would look to you guys for guidance. I mean, I think right now, barbecuing is not allowed in the park. If that's something the community board would like to change, it's something we're open to.
I'm gonna give no opinion on that myself. That, of course, is for board members, but if it is, I would really want appropriate coal disposal area or unit. It worries me that people would dispose of coals wrong in a forested area. John DeLuper is next.
Thank you, Jeremy. Just a few pieces of minor feedback from the plan and then a few questions. I gotta say, I love that you're adding, to Sam Steiner, love that you're adding benches. I've talked to neighbors who said that no benches at Busch Terminal Park are a big barrier to use, so that'll really enhance the experience. And also, since we have EDC reps on here, I want to say that the benches and tables you added at Brooklyn Army Terminal are fantastic, so I would encourage you to keep adding more. I'm glad to see this. The Walkway Hill also sounds like a great thing to make the park more accessible to people. And for Christopher, highlighting the sensory panels, they have those at John Allen Payne Park, and they seem to work really well, so I'm glad to see that. The tiles, the rainbow pattern sounds really cool, but given what I've seen at John Allen Payne Park with the green pattern ones that they added recently, they get kind of dirty and look shabby. I don't know if Parks has any, or EDC have any mitigation for that, or if it's better to encourage like using the solid gray or the solid black ones. And then my questions were, what were the materials of the walkway and the cozy dome? And also following up on Katie's question about the south entrance and parking. My question is, where exactly is that parking lot? Is it in the old like Neptune Pools facility, or is it inside the building? I asked that because that's one of the spots where actually bollards have been added to help protect pedestrian safety. And when I take my family to Busch Terminal Park, we go that way. And I really hate to have us on the path with cars whizzing past us going in and out of the parking lot while we're pushing the stroller. So those were my questions, and I hope you'll be able to address those.
Could you repeat them? So we've got.
Yeah, perhaps we should do them one at a time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So first was, what materials were the walkway and the cozy dome?
The walkway in the.
Yeah, the ones going up to there. Is it like asphalt, concrete, dirt? You know.
Fair enough. Sorry. Yeah, your audio is a little fuzzy. That's why I can. Yeah, it's intended to match the pavement of the park for all the trails. Okay. So that's an asphalt. When you have the safety surface, it obviously becomes that rubber unitized tile. Again, that's a big must-have for maintenance in terms of replacing those. Because if you have a poured safety surface, it's like a whole nother, you have to basically start construction to replace that. And then we do have, really quickly, as there are some thresholds to the lawn where we're reusing some of the cobble, because, you know, that's another moment where moving from pavement into the lawn, you get a lot of wear and tear, and it's good to put some materials there.
Okay.
And then
the cozy dome, sorry.
Right.
Is that like a rubber or plastic or something else?
It's a high density plastic. It's like one of those indestructible plastics.
All right, but no concern about the sun damaging it or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, cool. And the one about the parking, how are they going to get to that south entrance? Because I really worry about, you know, that path which is shared with pedestrians and cyclists, but if you have cars whizzing in and out of there hunting for parking, it seems like a bad idea, especially since this is one of the few areas where bollards have actually been done really well to help separate pedestrians from traffic.
So yeah, I'm trying to understand the conflict you're imagining here. So the parking lot is a separate thing, and it would have a place where you'd cross, you'd have a curb cut, cross the sidewalk into the drive and into the parking lot. And then you can go from the lot directly to the path, right? Through a couple different entries. Thank you for whoever's pointing. if you're coming or going as a pedestrian or a biker, you can see the bollards in place there to alert, just as you have previously experienced further to the north when you see in the aerial. So it's just exactly the same circumstance, but away from the existing driveway at 50th. So now you have more distance from a driveway and the same bollards to protect and warn you, alert you to the rail line.
I'm assuming if you're coming from the south or from the east, you would not be crossing that entrance to the parking lot. And the parking lot's relatively small, not, 50 feet deep is not going to create a drag race. And if you're coming from the north, you're going to go in through the other entrance at the north.
Okay, yeah, just because it's a little confusing, because right now I'm envisioning the current entrance, but it's hard to tell on this on this drawing how that relates to the buildings that are already there. It's just
Can you see the cursor there? That's the existing entrance, and it's it's right adjacent to the driveway into the studio site, and that's why we wanted to put it as far to the south as we could.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I have David Estrada next.
Hey, hi. First, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, your sensibility and language on the design style is incorporating a lot of the things that are more substantial and inclusive than conversations that I think I experienced, say, 6 or 8 years ago when we were talking about the children's playground in Sunset Park proper. So just acknowledgement there. And I want to make a special note from a small voice. I really appreciated your statement that integrated accessible play equipment was good for all children. As a parent of a couple of neurotypical, not mobility limited children, I appreciate it from their point of view, being able to be in a playground such as you mentioned. On the context and surroundings, I'm very thankful for access to water views, and sensitivity to view shed and view corridors. So that's all like, A-list stuff. I would like to say, all the play equipment that you mentioned is purpose-built, manufactured stuff. And we are in a natural environment where, let's see if I have these words right, the only waterside riparian forested patch on New York Harbor is fenced off. And my recollection is it's because the soil is poisoned. And I've noticed playgrounds get a lot of traction out of natural elements used as play equipment, like, large dead trees. For example, I think Park Slope and Prospect Park have examples of those. So I would just posit to you that you might get a lot of traction out of hauling in a couple of tree carcasses and just leaving them alone to rot, because my kids cannot stay off of them. And then the one thing I did want to mention is you mentioned plantings, and the only species I mentioned was, I think, black locust, or am I correct? The tree you mentioned. But are you taking into consideration native species and plantings, both tree and landscaping, that are friendly to local pollinators and native species birds? Because there's a really big bird watching community in the park. Thank you.
We have more than black locust. The black locust are already there. So we're complementing what's there with a variety of planting. We don't have that slide here, and I'm having trouble with memory, but one of the ones we're bringing that aren't there are trembling aspen, which are awesome in wind. You get the wind coming off the water, and they get that flickery light underside, dark top side, and they make a great sound. Also really popular with birds. So I think you'll be happy. There's the whole point is variety. When you create variety, you create lots of niches for habitat. If you have a monoculture, much less so, it drops precipitously. So between the existing natural area and these new variegated park canopy trees that we're proposing, I think there's going to be a lot for the wildlife to enjoy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Cindy Vandenbosch is next.
Hi, yeah, and I just want to echo everybody as well, the inclusive play. Just, I'm excited about it. I think this has been a very thoughtful presentation, and it's obvious that there's been a lot of collaboration, and you've really heard many of our requests. And so I'm grateful for that. But I wanted to ask a question. I realize this appears to be out of the scope of the present kind of design, but there has been some discussion this year about the Naval Armed Guard Memorial that is very close to this site, and the potential of rehabilitating that and moving it into the park in a location that would be relatively close to its current location, but maybe not leaving it where it currently is, because it's inaccessible basically to the public unless you go past a bunch of sanitation trucks. There's no sidewalk to get there. So I'm just wondering, with the current plan, if in the longer term we were to do that, it's essentially a flagpole, and we'd probably be looking for interpretive signage. Would there be space and a home somewhere? When I realize this is not in the present scope, but it is part of discussions that are presently taking place about this memorial. So any thoughts or feedback you might have on that front would be helpful.
Christine, is that something you might be familiar with?
Who's that, me?
No, Christine from EDC, as it relates.
Oh, Christine. Okay, thanks.
I'm not. I don't think. Sorry, we're talking about the statue that Cindy was just talking about and whether it can be located.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some discussion about this. Obviously, we'd want to engage some of the people that it is located at that site, because that used to be the Naval Armed Guard station was right there. But right now it's literally like in the middle of like sanitation, Department of it's surrounded by trucks and equipment. And I know someone who passed away who served in the Naval Armed Guard, who used to go in his motorized wheelchair down there on a regular basis to pay respect. It doesn't have interpretive signage anymore, but it is in an inappropriate, it's not really publicly accessible where it's currently located, and it's a stone's throw from this southern entrance. And so I realize it's not within the current scope, but it is something that we would like to see it not be neglected any longer, and make it like accessible, and maybe engage some of the people who are families who were involved in the effort of erecting it about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information on that memorial, Cindy. I've heard you talk about it before, so frankly, that's how I'm familiar with it. And I haven't heard about it discussed at EDC, but that's not to say that we can't do something. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think that it makes total sense to, improve it or move it to a place where it's far more appropriate. It sounds like it's in a really inappropriate location right now. So let's continue to talk. Sorry, do you know quickly who installed it or who's responsible for it, or if there's someone who's, I guess, in charge of it?
That's been a big question of ours for a while. Christine, I'll contact you outside of the meeting about this. I've reached out to Department of Sanitation on it because they were storing equipment up against it very disrespectfully. So I'll reach out to you outside of this meeting about it, which also brings up, though, I think we would like EDC to reach out to sanitation to make sure they no longer store their equipment on EDC's property immediately adjacent to our park entrance.
Yeah.
Do you mean that transfer station that's down?
It's a sanitation garage.
Yeah.
Right next to you, and they
Mm-hmm.
the BK10 garage, which is Bay Ridge's garage is located there. They tend to store their equipment on your property.
Right over at Bush Terminal. Okay.
Yep.
And I just want to, on that note, if you can loop me in, I've been trying to track down some of the family members. So, because I think we would want to engage them, if at all possible.
Cindy, I'll make sure to connect you with Christine as part of this conversation.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Victor, I've reached the end of the board and committee members, and Cindy, I've reached the end of the board and committee members who have hands up. Can I move to attendees?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I have Maria Roca. Maria, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So many questions, so little time. Friends of Sunset Park had been in conversation with the Parks Department forever and ever, from day one of when the news came out that that Bush Terminal Park was a reality. And through the years, we were told, as all the people in the neighborhood have been told, and there are maps with little circles, that there were only two places in Bush Terminal Park where you could build a playground, where you could put down concrete. And those areas, I'm glad the rendering is on screen, where you have the path, sort of the rounded path, east of the naturalized area. And the two areas we were told where you could only, is the south area of the path, right? It's smack in the middle where the circle tops out, wherever whoever is managing the, no, you're going too far. The part that is rounded, you have due east of the naturalized area sign, go up a little bit, right by the path. And then if you went south, the gray corner of the naturalized area, the very, very corner, little down in the gray area, and those were because of that the foundation below the park could not hold up any digging, any more drainage, any this. You could only build in those two very, very discrete areas. And now we see this rendering, and it's all over the place. There's this, that. And I am curious, because the Parks Department is on listening, I hope they haven't left. How did we go from these two very discrete areas to this more expansive area when the money, the shoring up of the ground to be able to build on it? So maybe not necessarily right now, because that it's sort of an engineering question, and I'm not sure anyone from the Parks Department is an engineer, but for instance, Sunset Park would be very interested in knowing how we went from those two very discrete small areas to this, all of a sudden allowing that it is okay to build here. Not necessarily that I don't like the idea, but just to understand it. That's a question number one. Down the line, and I'll just go down through all my questions and get them out there. There's a question of signage and naming rights. Will there be at any point, other than Parks Department signage in the entire, after the park, after the playgrounds built, after all the improvements that Steiner Studio is doing, will all of the signage remain exclusively Parks Department? What is the length of Steiner's funding commitment to this park? Is similar equipment by same vendor in use elsewhere in New York City? If that is the answer is yes, is that installation near salt water? And three, where is this equipment made? It's made in the United States. So I have other questions, and for instance, Sunset Park will do whatever it ends up being built. that the word gets out of the neighborhood, as I'm sure other people will.
Thank you, Maria.
Different languages. Thank you.
I can respond as to the naming. I feel I wanted to build a brand when we opened Steiner Studios, but I'm embarrassed enough having signs with my name on it, and we have no interest in trying to name the park. So include us out on that, or any part of the park. With respect to funding park programming, that is for the length of our lease. Our lease is 99 years. I'm not sure what else I can respond to.
I can jump in about the location. I think it's a real credit to the Steiner team and Gullivar's team and their landscape architects to come up with a really creative solution that was able to do something that I'm not sure that we thought about in the master plan. The master plan, Maria, was before my time. So, those were conversations with Marty and other people from Capital. But I think the plan that they produced is really creative, and Chris, Noel can back me up here. We definitely held them to a high standard when coming up with the design. So yeah, I think they came up with something very creative that satisfies a lot of needs.
I would only add that also all of this has carefully been vetted with EDC, who manages the infrastructure of below grade. So they are also been a huge support and careful to watch what we're doing here, so that it's past that threshold as well, relative to breaking ground. And I think there was something about salt water and materials relative to maybe the play equipment, but I think all of that, the Parks Department, we've gone through flood zone material standards, and I think we've checked all those boxes in terms of the durability of all that. And there will be, if we really do have another big flood, the playground will be above it also.
Also, you're the chair. You don't have to raise your hand. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Chris. Sorry,
No,
Chris.
what was Maria questions answered?
Well, we just one more that wasn't, and I looked in terms of the landscape structures, who's the manufacturer. From their website, they say that they have manufacturing and distribution out of Delano, Minnesota, Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and Dallas, Texas. So I believe it is American-made product, but I will confirm and get back to your chairs just to confirm. But I believe they are American-made product.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I have a question, and I really want to try to close this down a little bit. I have a question for Christina. Steiner Studio is putting this playground together for us in this park, which was supposed to have been done by EDC. The other projects, such as the lighting, we talked a little bit about the sinkhole, which were in the purview of EDC. What is going to happen to those projects?
So for now, we're maintaining the current structure. The parks will. And sorry, tell me if this answers your question. That Parks is going to manage the operations, maintenance of the park, and EDC is going to maintain the responsibility for the capital improvements needed at the park. And those capital and examples are the sinkhole and the lighting. Sorry, Victor, are you asking for an update specifically on the sinkhole and the lighting?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
The lighting project, as I'm sure most of you know, there were about 10 light posts that needed to get replaced. 8 of the 10 have now been completed. The last 2 had, I think once we started to actually do the work, it became evident that the foundations were a little more complicated and needed some additional design work. So those remaining 2 light posts still need to get completed, as far as I understand, should be done by the end of the year. As far as the sinkhole goes, and I've talked to Katie and Jeremy about this, we've had a bunch of really unfortunate funding situations to, over the last couple of years to get that sinkhole completed. One of the most recent ones was that when we finally were allocated funding, there was an error, a really unfortunate bureaucratic error in the way the funding was allocated to us, which is making it impossible for us to access the money. So what EDC has done is we recently got approved to spend EDC's money. So it would have been spent, it would have been city money that we would have used to fix those sinkholes. We're using EDC's money to do it so that we can expedite the repairs. We've ordered all of the materials. The materials should be arriving sometime in December. Now that we have approval to pay for basically the rest of the project, crews should be mobilized by early January to start work on fixing the sinkholes. I'm also told that it should take approximately 5 to 6 months to complete the project. So it's intended to be complete by the summer. So that's the status of the sinkhole project and the lighting project.
Okay, thank you. And this is my last, Jeremy, I promise. This is for Davey. Davey, I know you were on the meeting once, and then some other meetings you were not. We asked to have a walkthrough with Marty in Sunset Park because there was some issues with fencing, some of the boulders or rocks falling off the walls, and we never had that meeting. And this is like the third or fourth time that I'm asking, could you please set up a meeting with Marty for a walkthrough in Sunset Park with the Parks Committee?
Yep.
And my second question to that, which I forgot. My second question is accessibility to parks. This is like an ongoing thing with the park being supposed to close at 11, or let's say, I'm just using 10 o'clock, supposed to close at 10, and the personnel from the Parks Department is leaving at 9:30. And this may be some of the problems where people are getting locked in the park. Instead of them not listening to the parks personnel to leave the park, but possibly parks personnel is closing the park early that are locking people inside the park. So I think that needs to be looked at, that if the park's open to 10, that the personnel should be there till 10 so that the people could enjoy the park, especially in the summer, up to the last minute.
Yeah, I agree with you. Victor, I think we've had some issues with staffing over the summer, and especially after the summer when we lose our seasonal staff. So that's been a constraint for us. I think sometimes they do leave, they don't have coverage or they have another site to get to afterwards. We try to make Bush Terminal the last site on people's route. But that is something that, I'll bring up with Denise and Libby, just to make sure that, we're closing the park on time and doing our rounds to make sure no one gets locked in.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Victor, I have one more hand up, and then I think Doug and Debbie, there's a particular ask here, if I'm correct.
Yes.
All right, let's make this the last question, and then I think you had something, Jeremy, and then we'll take it from there.
So Katie has her hand up again.
Yeah, you guys can hear me okay. My question is actually goes back to what Christine, it follows on what Victor was talking about with the sinkhole and lighting for infrastructure. And so we just heard a resolution that passed tonight about EDC and the Parks Department. So I think the next Parks meeting, we should go through, this is a suggestion, and then there'll be a question. The suggestion is that we should go through in the next Parks Department meeting what was in the scoping and the proposal for Bush Terminal Park and EDC and what they're meant to do. My understanding is there was also Pier 5 is something that was supposed to be developed and managed, the infrastructure by EDC. I can be corrected if I am wrong, but that's something that I haven't seen in any of the plans or any of the discussions or even sort of on EDC's radar, that is something that they've been meant to be responsible for upkeeping. So Christine, is that Pier 5, is that something that you are aware of that you are all accountable for in Bush Terminal Park for the infrastructure for?
Not as part of Bush Terminal Piers Park. So EDC has, there's, I don't want to get too weedy, but essentially we're charged with two main contracts. We have a master contract with the city to do broad economic development, and we have what's called a maritime contract where we maintain and upkeep waterfront property that is not, parks are not looked after by somebody else. So in that sense, Pier 5 falls within EDC's purview, but it is not, like, to your point, Katie, I have not seen Pier 5 as part of Bush Terminal Piers Park anywhere in any of the design plans or the proposals or the, the PDC submission specifically was what I was looking at earlier today. But I know that it's been brought up before. If somebody has some documentation or can, because I stand to be corrected as well. A lot of this predates me. If there is information out there, I'm totally open to it. I just can't find it.
Can I just jump in here and say, yes, I have it. Yes, it's an EDC document. And I'm quite concerned that EDC does not have its own records.
Well, I just don't know what the document is. If I knew what it was, maybe I could look for it better. So Jeremy, if you want to send it to me, please do.
I would be happy to.
Yeah, and I'll
Jeremy,
just leave it as. Oh, Victor, I was going to say, as a suggestion for the next Parks Department meeting, we can go through the whole portfolio to look at EDC and what is on their radar, what is not on their radar, but ultimately the accountability for EDC, so that we can talk a little bit more about that resolution that passed tonight as a suggestion for next step.
No, I think that's great. And Jeremy, the proposal that you have from EDC, if you could just send that also to all the committee members, that would be great also.
You got it. It's from 2003 and 2004, I believe.
All right, great. Jeremy, I know you had some comments. We'll end it with you.
No. I've talked enough tonight.
All right.
But I believe Steiner has a particular ask of us.
Oh, sure.
Debbie, am I correct?
Yes, I mean, whatever procedure you think is best, but similar to when we came last time, PDC will be reviewing this plan that we've presented to you. So a letter of support. So
you're asking for our support for this plan?
Absolutely, yes.
So Victor, they are submitting this plan. They are asking us to support their plan.
I'm fine. If the other committee members are fine with it, I'm fine with it.
So you would need a motion if somebody wants to make one.
Point of clarification, is it both parks and ability and access?
So I believe for this one, it was both committees that were part of this meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
That was a separate resolution, so I believe it would be both. And if Victor, if you know differently, or if there's somebody else who believes it's different, please let me know.
I think it's for both, to be honest.
Okay.
David Estrada moves that Community Board 7 offer a formal statement of support for the plan as described this evening.
I have a friend. Oh, can I make a friendly amendment, or am I going out of order?
There isn't a motion yet because it hasn't been seconded.
Oh, so before you motion.
So you're not making an amendment, you're asking him to, or you have perhaps competing a motion.
No, just to add in a caveat that there be some exploration in the future. I realize it's not within the scope of this design, but just to put it on the radar of PDC about the memorial that's currently outside the scope, but that we'd like to potentially in the future. I don't know whether that is relevant or not going before the PDC.
It's relevant enough. Let's throw it in there.
Okay, thank you.
I move in the way that was just mentioned. What she said.
And I will vote present, but not entitled to vote for due to conflict of interest with EDC through my work.
Okay, but right now there's nothing to vote on because we haven't had a second.
Second for me, Jeremy, if I can.
You. Thank you. I guess there's discussion on the motion.
Any discussion?
Seeing no hands. Would you like me to call roll?
Please.
Okay. This is regarding supporting the submission as well as the additional language about the memorial. I'm going to call Parks Committee first. Victor Swinton.
Yes.
Thank you. Sylvia Augusto. Johanna Bjorkin. Johanna. Joan Body. Joan. Stacy Boyd.
Yes.
Thank you. Joseph Canali. Mary Jo Eister. Nicole Huang. John Fontillis. Zachary Jacy. Daniel Murphy. Fred Wolf. Katie Walsh.
Yes.
I'm sorry? Katie?
Yes.
Thank you. 3-0 in the Parks Committee. The motion passes. And I'm sorry?
Oh, you're going to call Ability and Access now?
Yes.
Okay.
Cynthia Vandenbosch.
Present.
Sandra Alfonso.
Present.
Joan Body. John DeLupa.
Yes.
David Estrada.
Yes.
Beverly Kleinman. Jimmy Lee. Julio Pena. Karen Rolnick. Did I miss anybody? Motion does not pass. 2 yeses, 2 voting present, no majority opinion. But the motion did pass out of 1 committee, so the Parks Committee can present it.
10-4.
Sorry, Jeremy. So you mean the Parks Committee can move this forward to the general board for a vote?
Yes. It didn't achieve a majority vote in Ability and Access, but it did in Parks, so Parks can move it forward in the full board meeting. And that's the end of the agenda.
All right,
That's
so
the thing I'm missing.
on that behalf, I would like to thank Steiner Studi for the presentation. Very informative. EDC, thank you for being here. Parks Department, I appreciate you also. Thank you all for being here. Cindy, if you want to close it out also.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, everybody. And we're really excited to engage with this new part of the park. Thank you for all your creativity and hard work and for really listening. We really appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for the great reception. And I want to thank my team and Gulliver's team. They really moved heaven and earth to make this happen and be responsive. And Parks has been terrific to work with as well. So thank you all. EDC, plug for you as well. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Night, everyone.